Good day, everybody. My name is Oliver Wee, and this is Merit Health and Wellness and Washington State University's Diabetic Education presentation. The goal of this program is to share information to our community and to our patients about the devastating effects of diabetes and ways to prevent this disease from developing. Knowledge about this disease is the first step in managing and preventing diabetes from developing. First of all, what is diabetes? Diabetes is defined as a disease that impairs the body's ability to respond or produce insulin in the presence of sugar in the blood. It results in metabolic issues related to high blood sugars. In simple terms, diabetes is too much sugar in the blood for extended periods of time. This condition is bad because it can cause injury to the small and large blood vessels in our body. A key concept to know about diabetes is the interplay of glucose and insulin. When we get glucose from the food that we eat, our digestive system breaks down carbohydrates into its simpler form. Glucose is then absorbed into our blood, which then signals our brain to communicate to our pancreas to secrete a hormone called insulin. Insulin works like a lock and key mechanism that allows the cells to absorb glucose and use it for energy and energy storage. Insulin is the body's hunger and fat storage hormone. Studies also show that insulin is inflammation's evil twin. Higher amounts of insulin is related to increased inflammation in our body. Over time, the presence of high blood sugars causes insulin resistance in all cells of the body. The lock and key mechanism gets worn out, and the lock in the cells do not respond to the insulin key. Insulin resistance is a condition where cells do not respond to the usual amount of insulin, requiring the pancreas to secrete more insulin in order to get the effect of unlocking the cell to glucose. More insulin means more inflammation in our body, and it also means more fat storage, subsequently causing a drop in blood sugars. This slide shows the interplay of a variety of factors and their effects on fat storage and calories in the bloodstream. Consumption of processed carbohydrates causes insulin release from our pancreas. Add that to our daily stressors, physical inactivity, stress, sleep deprivation, and other dietary factors, and we get increased fat storage. Can we all relate to a time where we all were stressed out and we reached for a food that made us feel better? An example of this would be like the Snickers commercial. When people get hungry, someone throws them a Snicker, which is high carb, all sugar, processed food. This triggers an increase in a person's blood sugar, which then the pancreas releases insulin. Insulin causes all cells, most notably the fat cell, to absorb all that sugar. It causes another blood sugar drop shortly after consuming the Snicker bar. This cycle increases hunger and food cravings. It slows down metabolism and produces a huge blood sugar swing in a small amount of time. Sugary food addictions are much easier to get than drugs, and also they are also cheaper and highly accessible. There is less judgment targeting for you walking out of 7-Eleven with a big gulp of soda at 10 a.m. than there is with a bottle of wine, and therefore we don't even realize the impact of addiction our country is dealing with. The net effect of this activity is an increase in calories and sugar consumed for fat storage and lower calorie energy consumption. The inevitable blood sugar drop after this activity would then restart the hunger cycle in a shorter period of time. How do we get insulin? We get our insulin from our pancreas. Medicines may make our pancreas secrete more insulin, or we can make our cells more receptive to the effects of insulin. We can also give ourselves injectable insulin. An important point to use, an important point to think about with the use of insulin is that insulin is naturally our body's hunger and fat storage hormone. When we inject or use insulin, we would gain weight because now we have the hormone that unlocks the cell to absorb the glucose that we consume. Another important thing to know is that insulin is expensive. Without insurance here in Portland, Oregon, a small bottle of long acting Levemir costs $285. Lantus, $274. Aspart, which is a fast acting insulin, $271. If we can manage our blood sugars without the use of insulin and by retraining our bodies in metabolizing carbohydrates, by changing the way that we eat, imagine how much money we could save in a year. You could use that money for a nice vacation, a down payment for that convertible or truck that you have been wanting, or even a gym membership. So, why is diabetes a bad thing? Diabetes is a bad thing because it damages cells in our organs. It damages our eyes, small and large blood vessels, kidneys, heart, and nerves. We will learn more about this on another presentation. Blood sugar goals. Our goal is to keep our blood sugars from going too high and going too low. Managing blood sugars by preventing our hormone insulin from being secreted from our pancreas. Lower blood sugars means lower insulin release, lower inflammation, and lower fat storage. The numbers right here are our recommendations for a patient who has diabetes. How do we get glucose? We get glucose through the food that we eat. Carbohydrates is the main macronutrient that we get glucose from. Examples of carbohydrates are breads, pastas, fruits, juices, sodas, as well as vegetables. Let's review. The kind of carbohydrates that we consume is a problem. We eat the wrong kinds of carbohydrates, meaning high glycemic index foods. These foods can trigger hunger cravings, and we desire more and more carbohydrates. Such these foods are an example of these foods are Snickers, sodas, potato chips, pizza, and ice cream. One factor that is constant with all of these foods are its high glycemic index. Carbohydrates with high glycemic index or high glycemic load, the amount of sugar it contains, elevates blood sugars and causes insulin spike to happen. Insulin then pushes the sugars into the cells of the body, specifically fat cells. A subsequent massive drop of blood sugars happen and people get hungry because the brain senses that its need for sugar, and then the cycle starts over. Let's review. Over time, the lock and key mechanism of insulin and sugar wears the receptors of the cells, and more insulin is needed to open the lock so that the sugars can get into the cell. This phenomena is called insulin resistance. The more insulin released, fat cells, the more insulin causes faster blood sugar drop and causes people to be hungrier and eat more. This is a vicious cycle. The management of diabetes and weight is not an issue of willpower. We have to understand that there are biological and hormonal influences that influence our cravings and our pleasure and reward centers in our brains. Stress, food insecurities, financial, and other issues can also affect choosing the right kinds of food. An example that I would like to use to illustrate this point is this. At Winko, accessible food tends to be cheap. When you walk down the middle aisle of Winko, you could see cheap processed foods that is easy to prepare and make. And for the person on the go that does not have time to prepare, that cheap pizza, which has a high glycemic index, may be the only option to get. And this is what we are trying to prevent. So, what is the problem? Diabetes is a carbohydrate overconsumption problem. Overconsumption of carbohydrates is a single most contributor uh, into the development of diabetes. Couple that with insulin release and its effect on fat storage and inflammation, and we get a double whammy of carbohydrate toxicity and increase in the size of fat cells. Cornerstones of therapy. Excuse me. Diabetes management and its prevention takes a team approach. It takes teamwork from your primary care provider, dietitians, exercise trainer, and sometimes psychiatrists to help curb food insecurities, food addictions, and to help us make better food choices. The most important part of this team is you, and the support that you have to make positive lifestyle changes happen and be sustained. Our goal is to help meet you where you are and guide you to a journey of health so that together we could curb the effects of diabetes and live happier and healthier lives. This concludes this module. Please watch our modules on diet, exercise, laboratory work, and sustaining healthy habits to learn more about how to manage and prevent the effects and development of diabetes. Thank you so much. If you have any questions or concerns, please email Sierra, Lindsay, or Oliver for questions, and we will do our best to help answer you. Thank you.